exterior temperature is 35 degrees, 32 degrees in Mission Hills, Kansas. So it's right around freezing. I've seen a little ice in the cracks. Say again because for some reason my YOLO box shut down. It says it's 32 degrees in Mission Hills, which is right at freezing. At least in the shade, there's like ice in the crack. University of Missouri, Kansas City, straight ahead, and over on the left side, and a little bit on the right. And then Russell Stover on the right hand side, that building right there. It's Miller time. You know, when it's time to relax. You got the time, we got the beer. They used to, back in the 70s, show those kind of countrified commercials, like a little time bar out in the country, or little bait and tackle shops. If you've got the time, we've got the beer. Do they even make Miller beer anymore? I'm gonna put my front reflectors on. Windows fogging. You know, the news has been really quiet lately. People are getting excited about being able to get vaccinated. And at least one political party is quietly doing business, and the other political party is still angry and living in La La Land and trying to block and object to everything. Running a little late. I was watching the Daily Woo before I left. His latest video out probably, 30-40 minutes ago. He's exploring Jack Kerouac's house that he lived in, him and his mother lived in Orlando, Florida. There's two houses there, I guess, and one in Sanford, Florida, that no longer exists. Jack Kerouac died, I believe, at the age of 49. He suffered from alcoholism. And actually, he essentially drank himself to death. He drank himself to death with wine. He was a wino. So it wasn't like he was this hard alcoholic. He loved his wine. I've heard it said, I don't know if I believe it, that wine will turn a person into what they call a sweet alcoholic, whereas the other types of alcohol, beer and hard liquor, will make you into a mean drunk. Either way, it's a form of drug addiction, and I'm happy I don't have to suffer from it. I kind of wish that I didn't have to suffer from it as another type of victim, but I think every one of us have been victims of that drug, those drugs, one way or another in our lives, by having people in our lives that have suffered from it and have one way or another victimized their family members, their friends. I've hung around with quite a few drinking people. I won't say drunks. I've hung around with quite a few people who drank themselves till they were drunk. So I used to hang out in bars a lot. Didn't have much of a social life, so sitting in a bar was my substitute for not having a social life. A true reflection, a lot of people that have a lot of friends say you only really have 2 or 3 good friends. People that have a lot of friends really have a lot of people around them that they can't rely on for anything. So I don't know if maybe it's just part of my makeup. I feel like I always want to be around people, and I like watching people, observing people, and meeting people and stuff like that, but I'm horribly shy, and I don't necessarily like making, I don't know, I like to travel, I like to go around, do things, and in some ways I'm a social hermit. How does that sound? That's kind of weird, like an oxymoron. To a few people. I can't really spread my attention span around so much. I don't have much. They're good at multitasking. Ahead of you, because you don't have to worry about all this other crap that you have to do because you've already done it. That's the way to be organized, I guess. All these tasks at once, each one yelling that they need to be the priority, and I just can't go, okay, I'm going to try and do everything, because you just can't. Can't always get the help, so then I have to figure out how to break it down into little components, and do this first, and then right there, right then. Or it's already getting toasty. I remember when it was so cold, the heater couldn't even hardly keep up. There's something leaking here under the road. There's something leaking here under the road, I think, or something. Let's just hope it doesn't decide to go underneath me. Interesting. No, I think those are sprinters, aren't they? Yeah, they're sprinters. I know that Amazon is buying a lot here. They're only making this version of the Ford vans here in the United States. The past few years, called the now it slips my mind, but they've actually been making these Ford vans in Europe. Actually, they preceded the Sprinter vans. They built these. They originally built these in the mid '60s in England, and they came to take over Europe. And if anything, the Mercedes looked at Ford and said, "Let's copy that." You know, a lot of people look at it and go, "Oh well, Ford is just trying to copy Mercedes." I think it's the other way around. Yep, that's Mercedes. It's got 6 on the fender. I know the Ford vans have dominated Europe. They're big in China, big in Vietnam, places like that. I think you see a few of them in Japan, although the Japanese more or less have their own thing. They don't like they don't like or need too many American products there. They have their own. So do the Koreans. I'll probably think of the name of the Ford vans. Ugh. Once I'm no longer thinking about anything else, it'll just come to me. Boom, there it is. I'll get that tip of the tongue thing. Spit it out. I'm running a little behind today. I'm also noticing, said it starts dropping out. But my internet has been a lot better running through the cell phone. It would be dropping out here because we're a telephone. The tower's off to the right there. It's an unincorporated area, so they built all the radiation spewing TV towers and radio towers here. Matter of fact, that road right there, it says it's called a television road or something like that. TV towers here. Channel 9's tower is over this way. Channel 41's tower is way to the southwest of here, maybe a couple of miles. And I know Channel 4's tower is right above the TV station. Old school that way. Big town, which is actually over a TV station, but not Channel 5. It's over KCPT, the Kansas City Public Station. And I believe that used to be Channel 5. They built a new one and moved out to Fairway, Kansas. I call it Faraway, Kansas. Although it's not that far away. Pardon the yawn, it's my nighttime. I go home, maybe eat a little. Watch a little bit, usually YouTube on the boob tube. It's nice. I try to get up early and had to have an operation. about the YOLO box is that I can stream I mean that it's sort of a switcher. I say sort of because I noticed it's kind of weak at switching. Actually, it'll do some neat things. Transitions aren't so smooth, but one of the more interesting things that it's doing is I'm streaming on multiple platforms. I'm streaming on YouTube and Facebook at the same time, and I don't know how many platforms I could stream to. I'm thinking of adding another couple more. But like on Sunday when I live streamed the church service, I streamed on their YouTube channel, which I have access to, and on my Facebook page. And yeah, I need to talk with them and see if I can get to where I can stream to their Facebook page, as well as their YouTube channel. The discussion was that we wanted it on their own dedicated YouTube channel, so that people who were looking for it knew right away where to get to it. But I argued that they should also think about using the Facebook, and at the time we didn't have the multi-stream capability. But to go to the Facebook as well, because a lot of people will catch it there. And it seems like Facebook Live really has good quality. I don't know if I've ever observed it through YOLO Box or how well that does. Shop for body work. She crunched it in an intersection one time. We got a rental car, and it was a new Ford Edge, like 2017, I guess, 2018 Ford Edge at the time. And you want to talk about autopilot. The car had lane assist. It had active cruise control, so that it would keep a minimum distance between you and the car ahead of you. And with all that stuff, I could take my hands off the wheel and the car would drive itself, literally. Except that it had a thing that detected whether your hands were on the wheel. And they knew that people would want to try that, and they don't want people to try that. So then the car would say, like a safety thing, it would give a message: please put your hands on the wheel or the car will pull over and shut down for a few minutes. Oh, great. And it probably would. It would pull itself over onto the side of the road and shut down. I think. I never tried it. It only gives you like 3 seconds. But it would just sit there and it would steer itself and pretty much drive itself. So the day is coming when cars will essentially become robots. And you can tell the car where you want it to go. And the car will say, okay, it'll take us an hour to get there. Would you like to take a nap? Which would actually be kind of nice. It'd be nice to take a nap as long as the car doesn't crash. You know, wouldn't it be kind of nice to get like that extra little bit of sleep before you have to go into work? Sleep would be like that. supervised reading, but maybe playing cards or playing games or talking or drinking coffee or sleeping. That time will come. Car enthusiasts think that's sacrilege. They don't like that idea at all. They think that their freedom will be taken away, and they love to drive and they want a hot rod. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It'd be pretty nice if you could get in something and it would drive you and you could do a lot of work while you're being driven and stop wasting that time. Like me, I would be shooting video while we drive and editing and this and that and the other thing. Quite a few times when we had long trips during our day, we had to go get a story that was like a couple of hours away, and the drive in the news business is to do things as cheaply as possible. So at that end, they're handing cameras and the gear to reporters and calling them multimedia journalists. In other words, they become a one-man band. And that way they don't have to pay a photographer. Well, they're finding out, though, that one-man band can't necessarily do as much work as two people together, because about 80% of what a news photographer does in the TV journalism business is drive. And so while we're driving up to Chillicothe to get that story about the school board controversy or the house fire that burned down and killed a family member or something like that, on the way up, the reporter is trying desperately to get a hold of people still. And then on the way back, if we're not going live out there, that said reporter is logging and writing. I don't know how many times you're driving down the road with a big heavy camera sitting on the reporter's lap, and they're logging it so they can write their story, so that when they get back to the station, they can put it together and give us enough time to edit and be ready to go. Now the equipment has gotten small enough. I mean, there's still definitely a need for two people working together. And part of that now, in addition to the driving and being able to pay attention to the road and stuff like that while the reporter does work. Oh, look at all those geese. But part of that now is safety. Things are starting to get a little scary. There are people who are being fed lines of how the media is the enemy, their enemy, and if people don't like the news story or their politics, they've got this cult-like thing going where they started threatening news media if we're doing their jobs. And now, we're going to have to start doing things. There's definitely need for two people. You can't have one person, especially if it's, it sounds sexist, but it's like somebody that a lot of assholes out there feel like they can muscle or take advantage of. I mean, I wouldn't be much muscle if it comes down to that. But there have been a lot of times where all it takes is for there to be just one other person around, and people become less bold. And it helps to have two sets of eyes paying attention to things. And, us telling each other what we're seeing, what's going on. Although that only works if you're both partners are to that. It doesn't always work if one partner is got their head in the clouds, and I've dealt with that too. I had one reporter. We were away from the live van, like it was out of our sight, doing her work, and she asked me for the keys because she had to go get something. She forgot something in the van. Okay. So I gave her the keys, and she came back, gave me the keys back. She went and got something. And then I had to go back to the van for something. So I walked back. The passenger door was wide open, and her purse was laying open on the seat and stuff scattered out. And I'm like, oh no, Somebody opened the door, and no, she did that herself. She left it wide open, a total scatterbrain. She went and got something out of her purse, left the door wide open, didn't even bother to shut it, and left her purse just laying out in plain view on the seat. All these people, hundreds of people walking around at an event that we were at. And I'm like, well, if she's that careless, then she's definitely not going to pay attention to anything that maybe. And that was also a day where we were a little worried about the weather. I had to keep asking what the weather was because we were in a live truck with the mast up, and a lot of these people that were walking around were children. And when I said, do we really need to worry about the weather? Is there a possibility of lightning? That same dimwit kind of went, whoop, whoop.